Hey y'all, welcome back to another ballistics gel test. Today we're going to be shooting Hornady American Whitetail 100 grain soft points out of the 243 Winchester. And here's your box for that Hornady American Whitetail 100 grain 243 load. Let's go ahead and flip it around and take a look. Here is a bunch of promo information on the interlock bullet and Whitetail ammo. You can stop, pause, and read all that if you would like to. Coming over right here, we do have velocity and trajectory specs coming in at 2,960 feet per second per the factory. We'll see what we get out of the 20-inch barrel out of my 243. Something tells me we're not going to come close to that, but that's okay. Anyways, let's go ahead and open this up and take a look. Comes in your standard Hornady plastic ammo holder, and I am filming this clip after the fact. I usually do this clip out at the range, but I forgot to, so I've already fired some rounds. Let's yank one out. Brass looks good, bullet looks good. Let's go shoot it and see what happens. And my test rifle today is my Winchester Model 70 featherweight compact, chambered in 243 Winchester, of course. It's got a 20-inch barrel. Up top, I've got a Leupold FX2 6-power scope. And coming on back, I've got one of my handmade leather cartridge cuffs. I've got 243 stamped right in it. Check out my website, masonleather.com. It will be linked in the description and the pinned comment. I would absolutely love to make you one. And coming over the other side, I've got my Whitetail deer design. We'll be taking 3 shots from 100 yards, firing into 10% ballistics gel that has been calibrated to meet the FBI's ballistics testing protocol. And while ballistics gel isn't an exact proxy for big game, it does provide a repeatable medium through which to test various bullets and ammo against each other. After the shots, we'll examine bullet expansion, weight retention, penetration, and velocity. My goal is to provide hunters like you and I with the most objective information possible to help us make the best choice for our particular hunting situation. The ballistics gel in this video has been sourced from Clear Ballistics. You can find a link in the description. So let's go ahead and shoot it. And we are down here at the blocks after shooting that Hornady American Whitetail 100 grain soft point 243 load, and we did capture all 3 bullets. Penetration wise, we got it's right there at 18 and a half, 19, and then 20 inches. Looks like they did expand pretty good. Very consistent penetration. Let's go back to the first block. Take a look at the terminal wound cavity. This is noticeably less than some of the loads I've tested. Looks like they start to open up at about the 1 to 2 inch mark. Open up. You got a good wound cavity right here. And then it tapers off right about the 7-inch mark, so not nearly as much terminal wound cavity as some of the other loads I've tested. And let's take a look at the velocities for that Hornady American Whitetail 100 grain 243 load. Our high was 2760, our low was 2743, and our average was 2752. And here are those Hornady American Whitetail 100 grain soft points from the 243 recovered from the gel. First, we'll talk about weight retention. We saw 66, 69, and 76 grains respectively for an average of 70 grains retained weight, which works out to 70% weight retention. And being that these are just a simple cup and core lead and copper bullet, I'm pretty happy with that. I've seen some similar ammo do worse, and I've seen some do better. And then on to expansion. We saw 0.47, 0.48, and 0.53 inches for an average of 0.49 inches expanded diameter, and that works out to exactly 2x expansion. And as you can see, each of these 3 bullets expanded very nicely around its entire circumference. These are very evenly expanded. Sometimes you'll get bullets where you'll have a jagged shard here or there. It's not really even expansion. But when you do get real good even expansion like this, it works out to just a bigger surface area punching through, which is always good. And then on to velocity. Our high velocity was 2760, our low was 2743 for an average of 2752, so our spread was extremely tight from our high to our low, and only a 17 foot per second spread, versus the factory build velocity of 2960, so we came in 208 feet per second slow. Very par for the course with a 243 Winchester. Remember, we're shooting this out of a 20-inch barreled carbine, which I think is appropriate for the 243. There are a lot of youth hunters, youth rifles, smaller statured people using the 243 with shorter barrels, so I think it's appropriate. And then, as always, I'll mention that the 243 is an overbore cartridge. a little bullet with a lot of gunpowder, so you really do need as much barrel length as you can get to maximize velocity. That's why we're seeing such low real-world velocity as compared to what's printed on the box. And then on to penetration. We saw 18.5, 19, and 20 inches respectively for an average of 19 inches of penetration. That is actually pretty darn good and on par with some of the better 243 loads I've tested. Alright y'all, time for my final thoughts on that Hornady American Whitetail 100 grain soft point load out of the 243. I've got my cheat sheet. Let's go ahead and hit everything real quick. Weight retention was decent. It's pretty good for what it is. This is just a cup and core copper and lead bullet. It's not bonded. It's nothing special. 70% weight retention. That's about par for the course for this type of bullet, especially considering it's small. It's, 243 caliber and it's going pretty darn fast. To maintain that much weight, I think is appropriate for what kind of ammo it is, what kind of bullet it is. And then expansion wise, it actually did pretty darn good and it was pretty consistent. 2x expansion. And for the 243, that's actually on the higher end of what I've seen with most loads. It tends not to keep retained expansion much more than about 1.8 or 1.9x. So to get 2x is pretty darn good. And then on to velocity, and like most 243 loads, this came in quite a bit slower than factory spec. 208 feet per second slow to be precise. But again, I'm shooting this out of a 20-inch carbine, not a 22 or 24-inch barreled full-size rifle. But I think that's appropriate for the 243. There's a lot of youth rifles out there and compact rifles in 243 that kids and smaller statured people are using. So I think a 20-inch barrel is actually appropriate for these kinds of tests. And like I mentioned on all the 243 videos, or at least most of them, the 243 is an overbore cartridge. It's a small bullet being pushed by a relative large amount of powder. So you need as much barrel length as you can get to maximize the velocity. So with a 20-inch barrel, yeah, your velocity is going to be hampered. But again, I think it's an appropriate test for the cartridge. And then on to penetration, we got pretty good penetration, 19 inches on average, ranging from 18.5 to 20 inches. So they're all tucked in within an inch and a half range. That's really good. That's very consistent. And it's towards the top end of what I'm seeing with 243 hunting loads. I'm very happy with that. And we'll hit on kinetic energy with a 100 grain bullet going on average 2,752 feet per second at the muzzle. We're looking at 1,682 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle, and that is right there in the range of most 243 loads. They tend to be in the 1,500 to 1,700 foot-pound range, and this is right there towards the top end of that. All in all, I think this load performed really well for what it is. I think it did its job, and if my rifle liked it, I'd be tempted to use it. If you've used it on game, let me and everybody else know in the comments how it did for you. Hey, if you enjoy these videos, check out my website, masonleather.com, and get yourself some leather gear handmade by me just for you. I've been handcrafting leather gear for hunters for over a decade, and I would love to make you something. The link is in the video description. And check out my channel for more hunting ammo ballistics gel tests. I have some big news. Lots of you have emailed me or commented how much value you get out of my videos. And you've asked me, how can you be a part of this and help support the channel? Well, I got to work and now I have a way. I've created a Patreon account where you can join me in helping our fellow hunters. Click the link in this video's description and watch my Patreon welcome video, where I describe to you how your help will impact this channel and our community of hunters as a whole. And when you join me on Patreon, you'll get a lot more than I can give you here on YouTube. You'll have to go watch that welcome video linked in the description to find out the details. I'll see you there.